Earlier today, the Prime Minister announced additional funding would be poured into resources that track terrorist financing in the charitable sector. The Canada Revenue Agency has taken action on a number of occasions to shut down and cut off charities found to be financing terrorism. One particular case that was actually cited by the Prime Minister is Irfan, a group found to have been transferring almost $15 million to groups associated with Hamas. But this is only one part of the solution. The Canada Revenue Agency, on the other hand, does not track foreign money that comes into Canada, money that is not going necessarily toward funding terrorism directly, but that is going toward fostering radicalism or extremism, money that fosters an environment susceptible to terrorism. I have Tarek Fatah with me, Toronto Sun columnist. Tarek, let me start with this. It's been widely suspected for years that the rich Gulf states are bankrolling conservative Wahhabi, Salafi institutions in Canada, Wahhabi and Salafi teachings in Western countries. How are these millions and millions of dollars coming into the country?
Well, primarily the first stage was that these capital investments came into the country through the governments themselves, through the banks. This is to build the infrastructure like the Islamic centers. We know about the Islamic Society of North America, $15 million came in. People denied, the institutions denied, but the Globe and Mail, Robert Fife has done a story on that, going back way before 9/11. What's happening now is that the governments, the Arab Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia have gotten smarter. Now they fund individual mosques by asking them to portray themselves as schools. So it goes from the Islamic Development Bank, it comes at $250,000 as a starting pool of money through which they start doing fundraising. Mm-hmm. The key thing is that the money is not coming through governments, nor is it coming from traditional sources. I'll give you one example where large amounts of cash are coming in from Brazil into Canada. Nobody even thinks about it, and it's not coming through wire transfer. It doesn't come through a package. It comes through individual carriers taking about, say, $100,000, carrying it with them, and getting into Canada. Mm-hmm. The black money then, which needs to be transferred as white legal money, goes through many religious institutions where the cash is collected and then turned as if it has been donated by people.
Who is giving those individual carriers the money? Is it the government of Saudi Arabia? Who is it? Do we know?
Billionaires who've made enormous amounts of money both in the United States and in the Gulf countries through not just the petroleum industry, through international banking, through universities. And it's not just Canada. This money has gone to the Far East, from Philippines, Indonesia, down to Chile, Mexico. You name it, wherever there is the presence of a religious Islamic institution, there will be the stamp of Saudi Arabia and radical jihadi Islam over it, or Iranian influence. One of the two will have to be there.
Foreign gifts of more than $10,000, according to the Canada Revenue Agency, must be disclosed. Are you saying that this money isn't foreign insofar as people, individual carriers, are bringing it across the border into Canada, and therefore it's not a non-resident gift?
Of course it's not. It's not even declared. You see, anyone coming into the country can bring in money up to $10,000, okay? Now, I came back after 4 months from India. I could have brought $1 million on me. And who's going to check me? Nobody. I gave you an example of how a Pakistani mule, she's a model, was caught at the airport with $500,000 on her. She's now in prison. But there are a lot of these people who are basically mules carrying the money in. They're entering into these institutions. Our law enforcement agencies, I suspect, don't have a clue how this works. There is a way to stop this if we determine and pass laws that say that within a religious institution you cannot donate cash. Up to $25, fine, but if you want to donate more, it has to be on a credit card or a check, and you'll be able to find out who's doing what. All of it will come to an end.
But how do you ban cash donations? At the back of any one religious institution, there are boxes that allow for people to just put $20 in here, $20 in there. I mean, who do you ban the cash donations from? Is it individuals? Is it companies? Is it governments?
Individual. Up to $25, if you are so generous and you want to give, say, $5,000 to a mosque, I would hope you'd like to give it by a check, not in cash, right? And then some of these false donations, the tax receipts are sold on the market. So the taxpayer is funding it again. So let me put it, I'm Mr. X, you're institution B. You come and tell me, Mr. Fatah, you can make $500. I'll give you a receipt that you gave us $10,000. You collect some money from tax, and half of what you collect, you give to me. So not only is the money laundered, it's also become an extra source of income.
And where's all that money going?
That goes into training jihadis, imparting education to the extent where a football team says, I can't play soccer because evil women are playing on the other side. Where do you think this is coming from?
I asked Prime Minister Stephen Harper earlier today about how to track these foreign funds that are coming into the country. And he said, I think we have done and are going as far as we can within the law. Would you agree with that?
Change the law. If you can't change the law, change the regulations. It's not that complicated. People need to be, well, Mr. Harper has been quite courageous in the Western world. Among the 24 OECD countries, Canada is the only country whose Prime Minister has stood up and said Islamism is a threat to Western civilization. But we need to stop donations of cash to religious charitable institutions. If we don't do it, if we come up with politically correct answers saying, oh, what will happen to the Anglican Church? Fine. All donations should come into the Ministry of Finance. Let every embassy route the money. There's no problem. You want to give $1 million to an institution in Canada? Send it to the government of Canada, it'll transfer it back over here. Why can't those donations come to our consulates? Why can't people go to the embassy and say, I have $1 million to give and I feel so good about Canada, here's $1 million. Our embassy should say, thank you very much. We'll transfer it to the Ministry of Finance or the CRA or whatever the institution is called. Revenue Canada will pass it on to that institution. It's a question of a will and making things bipartisan. The problem in Canada is that every step that this government takes, there's always two opposition parties who find fault in it. And what is happening is that our future is at stake because no one is fighting this war the way we fought Hitler.
Precisely. Last question. How damaging is it that these millions of dollars are coming in, that they're going toward Wahhabi Salafi, which is the most puritanical form of Sunni Islam teachings in our country? What kind of damage has been done?
Do we need more examples than the Boston knife-wielding fellow who was shot dead last week? How many more people need to die before ordinary people say that, watching television or Game of Thrones is not the top priority in this country? We're fighting a war with an enemy that has another 100 years choked out. And we can't choke out 1 year ahead of time? We need to know that every day there are people dying, are being killed, assassinated. If Taslima Nasreen has to take refuge in the United States and can't get to Canada, I know people lined up who will be killed if they come out of the hidings, who are anti-Islamist, and they can't get to Canada, but yet all these mullahs can fly in, come up with the money, and somehow manage to stay here. So the will needs to be there.
All right, Tarek, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.